Hi everyone, this is Laura from GOGLA. We'll give a few more moments for people to join as it's not quite 11 yet. So hang tight and we'll start in a few minutes. Hi again, we'll give a few more moments for people to join in. Hello, good morning and good afternoon for those of you who are in later time zones. This is Laura Sundblad from GOGLA. I am the program advisor for facilitating access to finance here at GOGLA, and I'm very happy to welcome you all to our webinar to introduce the latest global off-grid solar market report. This report shows the semi-annual sales and impact data from July to December of last year. And we've put together this webinar to help introduce you to the report, tell you a little bit more about what's behind the report in terms of the methodology and what the numbers show us from the last half year. What we're going to do today is take a quick look at why we produce this report. GOGLA produces this report together with Lighting Global. Lighting Global is based in DC, and so they're still asleep at this time. But we work very closely in collaboration with IFC Lighting Global in producing this report, so I'll tell you a little bit more about why we do this report for our members and associates. I'll also share some insights on how we produce this report, the methodology behind it, building off of some commonly asked questions that I hear from both members but also from other stakeholders about how this report comes together and what do the numbers actually mean. Then we'll look into the key results from the last half year, looking both globally and regionally and by product category, as well as look at the key insights of the impact metrics that are derived directly from this sales data. And throughout the presentation of the results, I'll be showing you snapshots of the new online platform where the results are available to those members and associates who participated in the data collection. And I'll also be sharing a little bit more about the methodology because we really want to make it clear to everyone how the report is constructed and what it includes and what it does not. There will be time for question and answer, and I'm really keen to hear your questions. I'll answer those that I can, and those that I need to dig deeper into, I can follow up with you one-on-one. Finally, at the end of the presentation, there is an annex with a full tour of the online results platform. So that takes a little bit more time, and we probably won't be able to cover it in this hour. But we've included it so that you can look at this recording on your own afterwards from the GOGLA website. So to ask questions, you can ask them throughout the presentation in the questions box, and then I'll answer them either during the presentation or at the end during the Q&A session. Without further ado, then we'll get started, and I would like to start actually by asking you all a question. So I will launch a poll here to know a little bit more about who's on the line. So please go ahead and vote on the poll to tell me which kinds of organizations do we have attending the webinar this morning. I'll give a few more moments for people to vote. Okay, most people have now chosen who they are. So we have 17% distributors, 33% manufacturers, 33% both distributor and manufacturer, and another 17% of investors. So the majority of people on the call are actually from the industry. So a lot of what we'll be sharing with you is probably quite familiar to you. I'll ask one more question before I get started so I know a little bit about how much you know about the report. So I'll ask a question. Were you familiar with the Global Off-Grid Solar Market Report prior to this webinar? Okay, so we have almost everyone voted. What we see here is most of you have actually heard about the report before. 40% have read previous editions, 40% have heard about it but never looked at previous reports, and for 20% this is the first time you're hearing about the report. So that'll help me a little bit in tailoring the message to you all. So the Global Off-Grid Market Report, looking at what is actually in this report. What does it show? So it shows the aggregated semi-annual sales and impact data for the off-grid solar sector. It covers always half a year, so this newest edition covers last July to last December. And this is the third in the series of reports. So we also have a report for H1 2016 as well as H2 2015. And it reflects the performance of 55 companies who participated in the data collection. So what I want to be quite clear about is that the data collection process is open to GOGLA members and IFC Lighting Global associates. So if you're not a member or a Lighting Global associate, then of course we're very interested in your work, but we welcome you to join as a member or an associate before you participate. This helps us to know what's going on in the sector in a way that's a little bit more verifiable than if it was open to anyone. But it also means that in the data that you see, the volumes are directly coming from those companies. So we're not extrapolating in terms of the volumes or doing estimates based on sort of overall trends or estimates or guesstimates or anything like that. It's strictly data that's reported by the 55 companies. And I'm happy to say that in this round, we had a record number of companies participating. So in the previous round, H1 2016, we had 50 companies, and before that we had 31 companies. And we definitely hope that the number of companies participating increases with each round going forward as well. Now, why do we do this report as GOGLA and Lighting Global? So first of all, it's a service to our members. We want to make sure that our members are able to make strategic decisions based on data and based on their market share. So everyone who participates receives not just the public report that's available for everyone, but also their individual tailored report, which shows what is their market share in the relevant markets where they work and where we're able to share data. So I'll share a little bit later more info on which markets we're able to report on. And from this round onwards, the companies who participate also have access to the new online reporting platform. So I'll be showing snapshots of that platform throughout this presentation, and then I hope that everyone who is on the line who is an industry representative who participated in the data collection will go and explore the platform on their own as well. Second, we need this data so that we are able to plan our work as GOGLA and as Lighting Global. So this informs our strategy, and this also informs our advocacy, both in terms of advocating the sector to donors, to governments, and to investors. Without a clear understanding of what we're selling and in which markets we're growing or decreasing, or where there's trouble, where there's opportunity, none of those things are possible without a comprehensive data set. And I should say also that the sales data collection is the current backbone of our data work, but it's not by no means the only way that we're engaging in increasing the amount of market intelligence that's available for this space. And we're also constantly looking to improve the sales data collection process. So in the future, we will have to look more closely on how do we capture sales from the PAYGO sector in a way that's even more accurate and timely? And also, how do we look at products that are not captured yet? So at the moment, the sales data collection captures solar lanterns and small solar home systems, but it doesn't capture community-level solutions or standalone agricultural solutions or other products that are increasingly becoming important in our space. Now I will show you, so this is the online platform. This is just a screenshot of how the starting page looks. So for those of you who are industry representatives, you'll recognize kind of the layout from when you responded to the questionnaire, entering your sales data. But on the online platform, everything starts from this results homepage. So you have a toolbox where you can see a little bit more about the report, read about the methodology, and also start a tour of the online platform to help guide you around. But then from the actual dashboard, you can navigate to multiple different places, and throughout this presentation, I'll be showing you parts of that platform. Now, before we get into the juicier parts of what the results actually show, I want to just go quickly through a few of the frequently asked questions that I hear about the methodology. So first of all, what data is actually included in this report? As I mentioned, this is only from the GOGLA member companies and companies with lighting global quality verified products who participate. How accurate is the data? So the data is self-reported by the companies, and they are responsible for accurate reporting, both of the product specifications, also the pricing, their sales volumes, and the locations of sales. And the cash sales revenues that are reported in this report are based on that pricing information given by companies. So companies give us the free onboard price, and we multiply that with a specific factor and get an estimate of the cash sales revenues. What we do also to prevent double counting is that we get data from both manufacturers and from distributors, but in the aggregate data, only the manufacturer data is counted. We do check the data for consistency and for logic, and where it's necessary, we make changes on product performance specifications, particularly if a manufacturer and a distributor have given different data, and also on the quality verified status of products where necessary. And I should specify that the quality verified term refers specifically to the lighting global quality verification process. How much of the market does this report cover? So this is a difficult question to answer. As I mentioned, this only covers the 55 companies who participate. Now, the main manufacturers of branded products do all participate in this exercise. So we have a solid portion of the branded product market. But as we all know, there are generics, counterfeits, non-branded products, lookalike products that are all present in the markets that we work in some more than in others. Bloomberg New Energy Finance has done research before, and based on that research, we estimated that we cover about half of the sales of off-grid solar products in the relevant markets. But that is a very rough estimate, and that is likely to also be quite different from market to market. And this is a question that we also will look at in the following off-grid solar market trends report, which will come out early next year. How do we ensure the confidentiality of company data? So we only report data for countries and categories where we can satisfy the 3 data point rule. So that means that at least 3 separate respondents have to have reported data for that category or for that country. So if you're wondering, for example, why can't I see data about this or this specific country, it's probably because we don't have 3 companies reporting from that country. Okay, so now I won't keep you further from the actual key findings. What do the numbers show us? So first, on a global level, we had in 2016 total, we had just over 8 million products sold, and 3.77 million of those products were sold in the later half of the year. So that means that overall, the volume of products sold did decrease slightly from H1 to H2. Cash sales revenues were about $114 million. This does not include pay-go revenues. For pay-go revenues, we did ask companies to report pay-go revenues as well. Some did and some did not. What we saw is that about 41 million of pay-go revenues were recorded, but that is likely to be quite a significant underestimation of what the pay-go revenues actually were. Quality verified products do represent most of the sales reported in this data collection. And so here's some more information about the decrease in sales volumes and in cash sales revenues. So we had about 500,000 less in sales and volumes between the two half years, and a decrease of about 25 million US dollars in cash sales revenues. Overall, since July 2010, when this data has been measured, there's been just over 27 million product sales. So overall, we're still on an upward trend in the sector, but this half year was a difficult one in many of the key markets, and I'll go into a little bit more detail about what were some of the challenges in some of those markets just a bit later. So looking at why we see this decrease, as you know who are in the industry, there's a lot of factors that impact our market. There's policy change, there's action by DFIs and donors, there's technology development, there's availability of finance, there's macroeconomic factors including currency fluctuations, seasonal trends, and competitive dynamics. And each of these can be a positive or a negative impact. And what we see is that it's a definite mixed result in the last half year. So in some of our key markets, there were really severe external factors that affected customers' spending power, as well as companies' ability to operate. At the same time, some of these markets continued to grow despite these difficult conditions. So it does show a certain resiliency and robustness in the market, but at the same time, we have to work constantly to make sure that we're able to weather these kinds of storms and grow even in the face of adverse conditions. So just to mention a few of the external factors that have impacted our market are the currency devaluation that happened in Nigeria, the demonetization that happened towards the end of the year in India, which had a real impact since India is still a largely cash-based society, and the majority of cash in that economy was made invalid. There is a severe drought and humanitarian crisis in East Africa, and that is particularly impacting rural customers. There is an ongoing import tariff issue in the East African community. And I have to say in East Africa, we still saw a growth in sales overall, but this is one of the key markets, and the growth probably was slower than it would have been otherwise. And then finally, some of the changes that happen from half year to half year are simply a result of markets being very nascent and very thin still. So those are situations where one particularly large customer or one particular large company have kind of an outsized impact of what the overall trend looks like. So of course, everywhere we report on, there's at least 3 companies reporting, but in small markets like in Benin or in Myanmar, a single government action or a single government procurement can kind of artificially inflate sales in one half year and then really look like a severe decline in the next half year, but really it's just due to 1 or 2 large customers. So part of what we work on is trying to make sure that the markets are deeper and that they're also wider. So now I'll show you a video from the online platform. So for the companies who are on the call, this is kind of a snapshot of how you can look at the aggregate data in the online platform. So on the online platform, the report highlights section is all about aggregate data, and then the sales data overview section is where you see your company data. So looking now at the report highlights, the basic logic of how you navigate is through tabs and through this accordion structure. So you go from a tile to report highlights, you go to a tab called global highlights, and then you can look at the graphs within that section. And this is the first time we're using this online platform in this data collection round. We will be tweaking it going forward in each round, so we're really keen also to get your feedback once you've looked into it a little bit further. Then looking a little bit closer at the regional results. So first, a note on the methodology. Which countries are included and how are they categorized? So in previous rounds, companies could choose to report on sales in certain countries, largely those that had had Lighting Global programs or activities. In this round, we opened it up so companies can actually report sales in any country of the world. And for all the countries where there's at least 3 companies, we have reported sales. Now, we did receive sales data from much more countries than we are able to report on. So 47 countries fulfill the 3 data point rule. And since this is the first time that we opened this up to cover all the countries of the world, it means that from now on we'll be able to track whether the number of countries we can report on are increasing. So that means that we are also looking at this broadening of markets from 47 countries to 50 and to 60 and so on, because there's still a lot of unmet demand outside of the sort of core markets where we're operating. And we use the World Bank categorization for regions and UN categorization for sub-regions like East Africa and West Africa. So looking then at the results, so in the main markets, so overall in the world, we have, as I said, 3.77 million. In sub-Saharan Africa, we have 1.87 million, so about half of the sales are in sub-Saharan Africa. And also just under half of the cash sales revenues are there. Most of that comes from East Africa. West Africa is a growing market though, so overall in West Africa we saw a decrease this round, but a lot of that decrease came from that one jump in Benin in the previous round. So most of the West African markets actually reported growth. South Asia covers 1.41 million of the world's sales, so it means that basically South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa are the lion's share of the global sales. And a note here on why we report PAYGO revenues only on a global level and not on the regional levels. We are looking to improve the PAYGO revenue reporting as we go along. This time is the first time that we're reporting PAYGO revenues publicly at all. And it's really a work in progress, partly because the logic of the sales data collection has been a logic of one product sold, and then we see, okay, that product was sold to that person, what was the estimated sales revenue, and that's that. But with PAYGO, it's more of a customer acquisition issue of, okay, this is one customer acquired, how much revenue does that customer generate over time? And that's quite a different logic, which at the moment doesn't fit very well into our framework. So we're working on it with our members to see how we can improve it further. On the right-hand side, you see some of the smaller markets. Those are still very important markets, and this is the first time that we're able to look at them in a little bit more granularity, because before we really didn't have a lot of data. And if you're wondering here, why Middle East and North Africa is so large, a lot of those sales are humanitarian sales, as a lot of the humanitarian organizations have their logistics hubs in the Middle East. The sales in North America and in Europe, some of them are kind of buy one, give one sales that some companies deploy. Some of them are sales for camping. Some are sales to Western NGOs or charities who buy them within Europe. Then looking a little bit more closely at the key markets, so East Africa and in India. So East Africa, as you all know, really continues to be the core market for many of our members and associates. So over 80% of the total sales volume and cash sales revenue of Sub-Saharan Africa comes from East Africa. And what's pronounced here is that the multiple light and charger product category is a very important one for Sub-Saharan Africa and particularly for East Africa. Whereas in India, a lot of the sales actually come from single light and mobile charging products. So those are products with the proxy category of 1.5 to 3 watt peak. I have to say that unfortunately in this round we're not able to report sales in Bangladesh because we had fewer than 3 companies reporting. So when you look at the South Asian sales, you should be aware that Bangladesh is not included. Looking again at the online platform, so how to look at regional sales in the online platform. So for the aggregate level, this happens again in the highlight section. You can see here also, this is fictional company data, but for your company, you'll be able to see your market share, how much you have sold vis-a-vis other companies in specific regional markets. And from here, you'd also be able to click through to a country listing for all of the regions where it's available. Okay, so then going forward, looking at highlights by product category. So first, again, a methodological note here. How do we categorize products? Now, this is a difficult thing to do, partly because when IFC Lighting Global started the data collection, the market looked quite different. A lot of the technological advances hadn't happened yet, and we did not have such efficient appliances as we have today. So that means that before, categories that were based on watt peak would look very different from categories based on watt peak today, because now we have efficient appliances that can run on much less power than before. So what we've done as a compromise is that we have 2 main ways of categorizing products, so that we're able to keep comparability, some level of comparability between rounds, but also to be flexible in terms of how the market is evolving. So first, for Pico PV products, which are the majority of sales reported in our sales data collection, the key factor here is what type of service does this product provide? And so there's 3 main categories: single light only, single light and mobile charging, multiple light and mobile charging. And we've also laid out how these align with the multi-tier tracking framework for energy access. And you should note that the watt peak capacity here is an indicative way of categorizing. So most products that provide a single light only fall into 0 to 1.5. Most products with single light and mobile charging fall into 1.5 to 3. And most products with multiple lights and mobile charging are in the 3 to 11. But if products have, so the overriding logic is the service level. So if a product did have single light and mobile charging, but it was somehow less than 1.5, then we would still categorize it into the middle category. Now, for solar home systems, it's a little bit different because there a lot of the services are similar, but you can have better capacities. So either you can run the products for longer or you can run them at a higher intensity. So for solar home systems that are over 11 watt peak in capacity, there the solar module capacity really is the overriding logic. So looking then at how the sales volumes go about in these different categories. So we see that the Pico PV categories overall are the largest ones by volume, as I mentioned, and the solar home systems above 11 watt peak are smaller. Part of that is just due to the nature of our members who are participating, and part of it is that for solar home systems, particularly in the 200, 300, and above categories, they tend to be sold in components. And in this data collection, we're only measuring things that are sold as one complete kit. As you can see here, Sub-Saharan Africa has a very important role, as does South Asia. So looking then at how you see this in the online platform, you can see global sales by product category. And again, if you're a company, you can compare this in terms of what you've sold and what the markets are. We also do have the global PAYGO revenues by product category included. So there the 3 to 10 watt peak is a key category. And in a lot of the online platform, you can view things either in table format or as charts. So depending on what's most useful to you, you can toggle between different views. You can also sort tables according to different things that you want to see. For example, if you want to see where are most of the products in a certain category sold. Okay, so then going into the GOGLA impact metrics before we open up for questions. So what are the GOGLA impact metrics? These are a way to measure the social and environmental benefits that off-grid solar products have for the people who use them. And they have been developed by the GOGLA Impact Working Group, which consists of both industry members and associate members. And each of these metrics is a combination of company data with certain coefficients with default values. So what we try to do with the impact metrics is make it as easy as possible for companies to get clear, reliable metrics on what the impact of the products that they sell is. So companies just have to report their sales volumes as well as their FOB prices and their product characteristics, and then we're able to calculate based on the default values. Why are they important? Well, they're extremely important for advocacy, so both for individual companies to show their own impact, but also for GOGLA and Lighting Global as well to show to government, donors, investors, and others, particularly on the impact side. Do they work for all kinds of products? At the moment, they're best suited for smaller products. And again, like with everything else in the data collection, it's a work in progress and we're constantly looking at improving it. So for the impact metrics, they will be expanded to encompass larger systems. And also, like with the sales data collection, we need to find a way to better capture the impact of pay-as-you-go. Now, what do the impact metrics show? So at the moment, there's over 85 million people with improved energy access. Most of those with just under half of those have Tier 1 energy needs met, and a smaller portion have Tier 2 energy needs met. Partly, the lower number of Tier 2 energy needs met is because the impact metrics are not very suitable for larger systems, which provide higher tier benefits. Looking at how this shows in the online platform, so you navigate to impact metrics, and there you're able to see both aggregate impact metrics through global impact, as well as company results to see the results for your company overall and for each of your products. And again, here we really rely on the companies to provide the product specifications that are needed. And if they don't provide the product specs, then we just are not able to give the impact metrics for specific products for specific metrics. And the GOGLA impact metrics are led here at GOGLA by Johanna Dieker and by Susie Wielden. So if you have specific questions on the impact metrics, then you can pose them to me, and I'll defer you to Johanna and Susie where necessary and answer what I can. Great. So a few more of the metrics shown here. So what we're looking at is what's the economic impact, how much are people saving, how much greenhouse gas emissions are offset through the reduced use of kerosene, which releases, for example, black carbon, and also how much more light is available. And again, as you can see, this is better suited for the smaller products and the lanterns, which primarily provide light. So of course, as we go further into larger systems, then there may be a need for new and additional metrics. Looking again at how you can see all of these metrics within the online platform. And as mentioned at the top of that page, you can click over into the company results and see results for your company. Okay, so now I want to open up for questions. And while you're thinking about your questions, I am going to launch one more poll to see what your views are on the decrease in global sales volumes and cash sales revenues. Is this surprising to you? Or were you expecting this? Or did you not know because you're really new to the sector? Okay, so almost everyone has voted. A few more seconds. Okay. So a small minority was not surprised at all, and the rest were moderately or slightly surprised. So nobody was completely surprised by this and saw it as completely unexpected. And as we build up the sales data report, we also consult with our members through our business development working group, but also individually, both on behalf of Lighting Global and on behalf of GOGLA, to see what our members see as explaining their own sales results. And that's where we get the sort of on-the-ground information to help us see what were the points of influence that affected sales in this round. And the Lighting Global country programs are also instrumental in giving us information on what's actually happening on the ground and what explains some of these results. And I have to say also that when you compare results from round to round, you should be quite cautious because the number of companies, as I mentioned, has changed, and also the companies who participate change even within that number of companies who participate. So when one large company joins or leaves, that has an impact on all the sales. So what we are hoping to do is, over time, gain more stability in the data collection and be able to show more historical analysis, more trend lines, even perhaps projections of what might happen. But for the time being, be quite cautious in comparing from round to round. So now I want to open for questions. So let's see, we have a few questions here. So could you say a bit more on how technology development has influenced the decrease in sales volume? Okay, so looking at, I'm going to go back to that slide. Sorry, just a moment. So I can see how this slide is a little bit misleading, but the point here is that there's a lot of external factors that impact the off-grid solar market, and those can be positive or negative impacts. So technology development can both increase the amount of sales as products become cheaper and people are more able to buy them, or products become more efficient, so you can sell a solar home system with a lot more services. You could imagine situations where technology development would have a negative impact on sales, particularly with the development of more generics as products become more commoditized. But this is noted here and in the report as one kind of generic factor. In this particular half year, we didn't see specific technology developments that would have increased or decreased sales. Then the next question, of the data collected, what do you feel was lacking most in submission and how can it be improved if possible? So from the types of data that we're able to collect, which are the lanterns and the all-in-one kits, there we do get the majority of data that we need from companies. I mean, one key thing that is still a work in progress is this pay-go revenue question. We did receive submissions from companies on pay-go revenues, but not from all the pay-go companies, so that we need to work still more on how do we get pay-go revenues reported better so that we're able to show really what is the state of the market and how pay-go is growing also in different markets. So is pay-go actually spreading from market to market? At the moment, we only show it for the global level, but I would like to be able to show that on a regional level as well. Now, some of the data for East Africa by product type is very dubious. So you're saying that the price, or the asker is saying that the price per product is too low. So here you need to, again, note a lot of the restrictions in the data. So part of it is that the revenue data that's shown per region is only for cash sales revenues. So a lot of the products in the 11 to 20 watt peak category are likely to be pay-go products, and we don't show pay-go revenues by region. So that's one thing. Also, not all companies provide the free onboard price for their products, and if they don't, then we're not even able to include the revenues in the cash sales revenues. So they're all estimates. They all come with caveats, but having only cash sales revenues explains at least some of that discrepancy that you see. Do we have more questions? Yes, we do. Okay. So I'm going to scroll to the end. Do we have more questions from the attendees? If not, I'm going to ask you for one more question, which will help us also to prioritize what kind of additional data we should be looking to get for our next round. Then I'll answer the next question that came up. So I'm asking what other types of sales data would be most helpful to you and to your work in this sector. So the poll is open. You are free to vote. Okay, so almost everyone has voted. It seems that there's a desire to see more data on pretty much everything. So the largest category is to get more data on distributors. And I think linked to that is more national level data. So if we can get more data on distribution, then by the very nature of distribution, that is going to be more national level and more granular. So we will keep that in mind, particularly as we work through national renewable energy associations and help them to set up national sales data collection processes that are aligned with this global process, not duplicative, but providing a little bit of a different kind of output. We also have over half of the votes going into more data on social and environmental impacts. So that's clear that there's a need for more information there. And then the smallest group, but still a significant group, is to get more info on other types of products, for example, standalone products for agricultural use. So we'll keep this in mind, and obviously GOGLA and Lighting Global will continue to also consult with our members to see how we improve this, how we make it easier for companies round on round, and how do we provide outputs that are most useful to you. So I'm going to return to the question and answer now. So the next question is, with so many devices being sold since 2010, and obviously we all hope to increase year on year, does GOGLA see the enforcement of battery recycling by government or regulators as part of business planning? I think that overall sort of environmental standards will be part of government regulations, but at the same time, a lot of the markets don't actually have any infrastructure for battery recycling yet. So it doesn't only pertain to the off-grid solar industry, but to the whole segment of the economy that's producing e-waste. And my colleague, John Keane, who's the program manager for technology and customer protection here, he would be sort of the best one to look into a crystal ball with and see what can we expect in terms of regulation on battery recycling. But it hasn't come up as a key question or concern from our members to date. We still have some time for some more questions. Please feel free to ask either about the sales data or the process or the results or anything else. Obviously, I'll be also available by email for questions, and I'm already in touch with many of the people who are on the webinar. And Leo Blythe, my colleague at IFC Lighting Global, is also very much involved in the sales data collection. So if you have questions on the Lighting Global side, then you can always reach out to Leo. So if we don't have more questions, okay, there's one more question. Can the slides of the presentation be shared? Yes, we'll be posting them on the GOGLA website, so you can access them there. Any final questions? Last chance. Okay, well, thanks for your interest. Thanks for joining. Please be in touch as you get more questions or comments. And for those of you who participated in the data collection, we'll be sending out a feedback survey on the platform and on the overall process this week or next. So please do help us to help you and respond to that. Thanks very much, everyone. Bye.